I made a small mistake. That mistake took me to the wrong place. It was my first day in Milan. I got in a taxi. I said one English word. The taxi driver did not understand. He thought I said something else. He laughed a lot. I felt shy. What would you do if one wrong word took you to the wrong place? This is my travel story. My name is Layla. I am 26 years old. I am from England. I like to travel. I love to see new places. This trip was special. It was my first time in Europe. I was very excited. I wanted to take pictures. I wanted to try new food. I also wanted to practice English. I learned English in school. I am still learning. My English is not perfect, but I try my best every day. If you like simple English stories, please subscribe to the channel. Share this story with your friends. Leave a comment and tell me your travel mistake. I love to read your stories too. I started my trip in the morning. My flight was very early. I did not sleep much. I packed my bag and took a taxi to the airport. The airport was busy. There were many people. I waited in line. I gave my passport to the woman at the desk. She smiled and gave me a ticket. I found my gate and sat down. After 1 hour, I got on the plane. The plane was big. There were many seats. I sat near the window. I looked outside and smiled. I felt happy. I was ready for a new place. The flight was not too long. I slept for some time. I watched the clouds. I looked at the people around me. Some people talked. Some people read books. I closed my eyes again. After some time, the plane landed. We arrived in Milan. I took my bag. I walked to the exit. I followed the other people. I saw many signs. Some signs were in English. Some signs were in Italian. I was a little tired, but I was also excited. Outside the airport, I saw many taxis. I looked at my phone. I had the address. I did not book a hotel. I booked a small room. It was near a shopping street. I opened the app. The driver was not there yet. I waited near a bench. After 10 minutes, a man came to me. He said, "Taxi?" I showed him my phone. He looked at the address. He smiled and said, "Okay, let's go." I got into the taxi. It was warm inside. I put my bag next to me. The driver started the car. He looked at me in the mirror. "First time in Milan?" he asked. I smiled and said, "Yes." He asked, "Where are you from?" I said, "England." He said, "Welcome to Milan." I said, "Thank you." Then I said, "I want to rest." I was very tired. I just wanted to sleep. The taxi driver looked confused. He looked in the mirror again. He laughed a little. He said, You want to wrestle?" I did not understand. I looked at him. I said, "No. I want to rest. I want to sleep." He laughed louder. "Ah, rest, not wrestle," he said. I laughed too, but I felt shy. Did I say it wrong? Was my English bad? I wanted to speak well, but I made a mistake. The taxi driver smiled. "Funny mistake," he said. "Don't worry." The car moved fast. We passed shops and houses. We passed a big park. I looked outside the window. The sky was blue. The sun was high. Milan looked beautiful. The buildings were old. The streets were clean. People walked with coffee in bags. Some people rode bicycles. I took out my phone. I wanted to take a picture, but my phone was at 5%. The battery was low. The driver kept talking. He said, "My cousin is a wrestler." He smiled. "He is on TV. Very strong." I smiled. "That's nice," I said, but I was too tired to talk. I just wanted to close my eyes. I looked at the screen on my phone. The map was open. I checked the location. We were close. The street was near. But then the screen turned black. My phone died. Now I could not check the map. I did not know how far the place was. The taxi driver asked, "Is this the right street?" I looked around. I saw some small shops, but I did not see the place. I said, "I don't know. My phone is dead." The driver stopped the car. He looked at his phone. He did not find the address. He said, "I will ask someone." He rolled down the window. He called a man on the street. "Do you know this place?" he asked. He showed the man the address on my phone screen. The man looked. He said, "Oh, it is the other way. Go back and turn left." The driver said, "Ah, I went the wrong way." He smiled at me. "Don't worry. We will find it." I nodded and smiled too. But inside I was nervous. We drove again. The streets were small. There were many turns. I looked at the buildings. I tried to remember the pictures from the app. After 5 minutes, we stopped. The driver said, "This is it." I looked at the building. I was not sure. There was no sign. There was no number. I said, "Are you sure?" He said, "Yes. It is here." I got out of the car. I looked around. The street was quiet. I saw a woman with a baby. I asked her, "Do you know this address?" She looked and said, "No, sorry." I felt confused. I looked back. The taxi was gone. I was alone. My phone was dead. I was in a new city. I did not know where to go. I sat on the steps of the building. I put my bag down. I took a deep breath. I told myself, stay calm. I waited for someone to come out. After 10 minutes, a man opened the door. I asked him, "Do you know this address?" He said, "No, but the next street has the same number." I said, "Thank you." I picked up my bag and walked to the next street. I looked at the numbers on the buildings. I walked slowly. Then I saw it. The door was brown. The number was the same. I checked the picture I took before. It matched. This was the place. I smiled. I walked to the door and rang the bell. A man opened the door. He said, "Are you Layla?" I said, "Yes." He smiled and said, "Welcome. You are here now." I said, "Thank you." I went inside. The room was small but nice. There was a bed and a chair. I sat down. I felt so tired. I wanted to sleep, but I also wanted to laugh. One small English mistake made my day very long. I said rest. He heard wrestle. It changed everything. But it was also a funny story. I will never forget my first day in Milan. I closed my eyes and lay on the bed. My legs were tired. My arms were tired. My mind was tired. I did not sleep on the plane. I wanted to sleep now, but my brain was full. I kept thinking about the taxi. I thought about the driver's face when I said rest. I laughed a little. It was funny now. But in the car, it did not feel funny. I was shy. I was afraid I said something wrong. But now I was safe. I was in the right place. I looked at the room. There was a small table. There was a mirror. There was one window. The air was quiet. I felt better. I found the charger in my bag. I plugged in my phone. The screen turned on. I had no messages. I had no missed calls. I checked the map. I was near the shops. I was near food places. I smiled. I was in the right area. I looked out the window. I saw people walking. Some people were alone. Some were with friends. Some had dogs. I wanted to sleep, but I also wanted to go out. It was my first day in Milan. I did not want to waste time. I drank some water. I changed my clothes. I took my bag. I put my phone and wallet inside. I walked to the door and went out. The street was sunny. The buildings were tall and light brown. Some windows had flowers. The doors were wooden and wide. The sky was still blue. I took a deep breath. It was a nice afternoon. I started walking. I followed the map. The roads were clean. The signs were in Italian, but I could read the names. I walked for 10 minutes. Then I found a small cafe. People were sitting outside. Some people had ice cream. Some had coffee. I sat at a table. A woman came with a smile. She said something in Italian. I smiled and said, "Sorry, I speak English." She nodded. "No problem." "What would you like?" I asked. "Do you have tea?" She said, "Yes." "Hot or cold?" I said. "Hot, please." I looked around while I waited. A boy rode past on a bike. He wore a yellow shirt. A girl next to me laughed with her friend. An old man read a newspaper. A small dog sat under a chair. The tea came in a white cup. It was hot and smelled nice. I held it with both hands. I felt calm. I looked at my phone. I opened the Notes app and wrote something. I wrote, "Day 1. Got lost. Said wrestle. Found the place all okay now." I smiled. After tea, I walked more. I went to the shopping street. I saw big shops with lights. Some shops had clothes. Some had shoes. Some had books and glasses. I did not buy anything. I just looked. I liked the people. They were calm. They walked slowly. Some people spoke English. Some spoke Italian. I tried to understand, but it was hard. I only know a little Italian, but I was happy to listen. Then I wanted to buy a drink. I went to a small store. I found water. I went to pay. The woman at the counter said something fast. I smiled but did not understand. I said, "Sorry?" She said it again. I still did not understand. She showed me the screen. It said the price. I gave her money. She smiled and said, "Grazie." I said, "Thank you." I walked back to my room. It was early evening. The sun was lower in the sky. The streets were busy now. People were coming home from work. Some people had food in bags. I walked slowly. I looked around again. I did not want to get lost. I looked at the map. I saw my street. I turned left. I saw the big red door. I smiled. I found it. I opened the door and went in. I went upstairs. I sat on the bed. I took off my shoes. I looked at my phone. There was a message. It was from my friend Sarah. She asked, "Did you arrive?" I sent her a photo and said, "Yes, I got lost. Funny story. I tell you later." She sent a smile emoji. I felt good. I was still thinking about the taxi. I looked online. I searched for rest versus wrestle. I wanted to know the sound difference. I listened to the words. Rest. Wrestle. Yes, they were different. But for a new learner, they sound close. It is easy to mix them. I clicked on a video. A teacher explained the sound. I listened and repeated. I said rest 5 times. Then I said wrestle. I started to laugh again. Now I understood why the driver laughed. I said rest, but maybe my sound was wrong. I wanted to learn more. I found more word pairs. beach and peach, sit and sheet, walk and work. They all sound close. I read the words. I said them out loud. I wanted to be better. I wanted to speak well. I liked English, but it is not easy. It takes time. It takes practice. I smiled. I will learn. Slowly, but I will learn. Then I remembered the driver's face when I said rest. He looked in the mirror. He made a funny face. I laughed out loud in my room. That moment was funny, but also real. I was in a new place. I spoke in a new language. I was brave. I made a mistake, but it was okay. I decided to go out again. I wanted to walk before it got dark. I took my small bag. I left the room and locked the door. I walked to the corner. There was a small square. People were sitting and talking. I sat on a bench. I looked at the sky. It was orange and pink. I saw birds flying. A man played music. He had a guitar. He sang in Italian. A small girl danced in front of him. Her parents clapped. I sat there and smiled. I felt happy. The mistake in the taxi was not bad. It was part of the trip. It was a good memory now. I will never forget that driver. I will never forget what he said. You want to wrestle. I will never forget that face. I stayed in the square for a long time. Then I walked home. The sky was dark now. The lights were on. The air was cool. I felt safe. I was not afraid. I found the way. I used my eyes and my brain. I remembered the buildings. I remembered the trees. I opened the door. I walked up the stairs. I opened my room. I lay on the bed again. I felt warm. I felt ready to sleep. I thought about my day. I was proud of myself. I traveled alone. I found the room. I made a mistake. I laughed. I walked a lot. I spoke English. I tried. I did not give up. I turned off the light. I closed my eyes. Tomorrow, I will go to the museum. I will try new food. I will take more pictures. I will listen to more words. And I will remember this. Mistakes are okay. Mistakes are part of learning. And sometimes, mistakes are funny too. The next morning, I woke up early. The sun came through the window. The light touched the floor. I sat up and smiled. I was not tired anymore. I felt good. I was ready for a new day in Milan. I opened the window. The street was quiet. I could hear birds. I could hear soft sounds from a bicycle. I washed my face. I got dressed. I packed my small bag. I wanted to go out again. I wanted to walk. I wanted to take photos. I wanted to speak more English too. I had a plan for the day. First, I wanted to go to the big church. People said it was beautiful. I saw pictures of it online. The name was hard to say. It was in Italian, but the map helped me. I followed the blue line on my screen. The church was not far. I walked slowly. I stopped to take pictures. I saw a woman painting a picture on the street. I saw a man selling fruit. He smiled and said, "Buongiorno." I smiled back and said, "Good morning." After some time, I arrived at the church. It was big and white. It had many windows. The doors were tall. There were many people there. Some took pictures. Some walked in silence. Some just sat and looked. I stood in front of it and smiled. It was even better than the photos. I walked around. I took more pictures. I sat on the steps and drank water. I listened to the sounds. I watched the sky. It was blue again. No clouds. Just sun. After the church, I walked to a market. The market was outside. People sold food, clothes, and small things. One man sold hats. I stopped and looked. He said, "You like this one?" I said, "Yes, it looks nice." He said, "Try it." I put the hat on. He smiled and said, "Perfect." I laughed. I asked, "How much?" He showed me with his fingers. I gave him the money. He put the hat in a small bag. "Thank you," I said. "Have a nice day." He said, "You too." I walked more. I took a few streets I did not know. I followed the signs. I followed the people. I was not afraid. I wanted to see something new. I turned right. Then I turned left. Then I saw something strange. A man stood in the street. He looked at me. He smiled. Then he walked closer. "Hi," he said. I smiled and said, "Hello." He asked, "Are you from here?" I said, "No. I am visiting." He said, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from England." He said, "I can show you a good place." I smiled but took a step back. "No, thank you," I said. "I'm okay." He said, "Come on, it's nice." I shook my head. "No, thank you," I said again. Then I turned and walked away. I walked fast. I did not run, but I walked fast. I looked at my phone. I checked the map. I found the main road again. I felt better. I walked to a park. It was quiet. There were trees. There was grass. People sat on benches. A woman read a book. A boy threw a ball. I sat down under a tree. I opened my water bottle. I drank slowly. I looked at the sky again. I was happy to be alone now. I needed a quiet moment. I thought about the man in the street. I did not feel angry, but I felt careful. It is good to be friendly, but it is also good to be safe. I made the right choice. I was proud of myself. I stayed calm. I used clear English. And I walked away. After the park, I went to a small place for food. I found a table outside. I looked at the menu. The words were in Italian, but some had English too. I chose pasta and water. A young woman came to take my order. She said, "Ready?" I said, "Yes." "One pasta, water." She wrote it down and said, "Okay." I looked around while I waited. I thought about my trip. I made one mistake on day 1. I said rest. The driver heard wrestle. He laughed. I felt shy, but I also laughed later. That small mistake became a funny story. It was not a big problem. It helped me learn, and it helped me remember. Language is not always easy, but mistakes can teach us something. My food came. It looked good. It smelled good. I took a bite. It tasted nice. I ate slowly. I watched people pass by. I smiled at a girl with her mother. The girl had flowers in her hand. She smiled back. The world felt kind. After lunch, I walked again. I did not need the map now. I remembered the roads. I turned at the red building. I walked past the blue door. I saw the tall tree. I found my street. I found my door. I felt strong. I felt sure. I walked up the steps and opened the room. I sat on the bed and looked around. The small table was there. The mirror. The window. I was back. I took off my shoes. I looked at my phone. I opened the map. I checked where I went. I looked at the photos. I had many now. I smiled at one picture. It was the church. My face was small, but I looked happy. Then I sent a message to my friend. I wrote, "Today was better. No taxi mistakes. Just walking, food, and fun." She replied, "Good. Enjoy it." "I want to see all the photos." I smiled. I will send her some soon. I stood up and looked out the window. The sun was starting to go down. The light was soft. I thought about the next day. I wanted to visit one more place. Maybe a museum. Maybe a lake. I did not know yet. But I was ready. I sat down again. I picked up my phone. I opened a video. It was about English sounds. I listened. I repeated. Rest. Wrestle. I laughed again. I will not forget that sound now. I learned something on this trip. I learned how to travel alone. I learned how to stay calm. I learned how to speak, even when I make mistakes. This was my story. One mistake made me feel shy. But later, it made me feel strong. Now I can laugh. Now I can smile. And now I can say this: small mistakes are not the end. They are just the start of learning something new.